So I would assume that many of you in this room have served on a board from some kind of agency or organization in the past, and you know that serving on the board of a nonprofit education organization, it's important that the executive leadership is there to have the continuity and the sustainability and the vision that's needed in order to succeed over the long haul. Staying true to mission while being agile enough to respond to changes within the industry or the culture or the economy is crucial. Bruce Frankel has successfully navigated the DRC from its original mission of serving as a day shelter for our community's homeless population to an organization committed to finding housing solutions at sites throughout our community. His continual focus on collaboration with partner agencies, and in some cases co-locating services in their offices, means more people than ever are being served where and when they need it. Bruce's penchant for partnerships, coupled with his commitment to the DRC's clients, has brought new purpose to this organization, and that is to put housing first to end homelessness, one individual or one family at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome DRC Executive Director Bruce Frankel.
Hey, the good news, my alarm went off. The bad news, I couldn't find my Goo glasses. So anyway, thank you all for being here. The theme of today is leadership, and all of you are important leaders in our community. Political leaders, business leaders, faith-based leaders, leaders in the service community. And I thank you for your leadership and the wisdom that I have gained from working with many of you. I know a lot of people have been thanked. I do want to thank a few more people, some of our major systems partners, City of Fort Worth, Neighborhood Services Division, Fort Worth Housing Solutions, Downtown Fort Worth, Inc., MHMAR of Tarrant County, the state of Texas. We have a big grant with the Office of the Governor. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate it. Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, John Peter Smith Hospital, the Paulus Foundation, One Safe Place. We also have some major institutional and private family funders. Again, my thanks to the Finleys. You guys have been wonderful supporters for all the years I've been at the DRC and have, I think, really helped to spearhead a real interest in these issues amongst the business community, particularly in the core downtown area. Eamon G. Carter Foundation, Sid Richardson Foundation, the Ryan Foundation, Ann and Robert Bass have been very generous to us. And then our major faith-based partners, certainly First Presbyterian Church, First United Methodist, University Christian Church, and then the 27 congregations that have been members of the Room at the Inn network over the years. It's been a fabulous effort in a partnership between public, private, and the faith-based community. And then I'd like to give just quick special recognition to the person that way back in 2009 started Breakfast with the Mayor, and that's Susie Rhodes. And then I'd also like to thank Becky Haskin, who is here today, for single-handedly producing numerous DRC fundraising events over the year where it's just her doing things. And I really appreciate that, Becky. Don Schisler and the Board of Directors of Union Gospel Mission many years ago were one of the original incorporators of the DRC back in 1998. And over the last 19 years, they allowed us to rent for $1 a year that building on the corner of East Lancaster and Cypress. And if you notice, that building's gone now. And that's very symbolic in a number of ways, but Don and his board allowed this mission to sustain itself and move forward all these years, and a big debt of thank you to you guys. Okay, finally, there's 3 people I want to thank that have been immeasurable in the evolution of this agency from what was a shelter-based organization to a community-based organization. And that's Bonnie Siddons, who is our former chair, now our chair emeritus, Carlila Vogel, some of you, in fact, many of you probably know Carlila, strategic consultant, and Judy Bishop, who used to be the executive director of YWCA, has worked many years with us with operational planning. And then finally, I want to thank Board of Directors, Mary Ann Auld, our chair, and the wisdom and the guidance that you've given me, but mostly for the friendship and support. So here's where everybody holds their breath. Is he going to follow the script or not? So, you know, it's really small print, and I told you I forgot my Google glasses, so there's going to be some winging this. So I heard this TED Talk last week, and the TED Talk was about ideas and leadership. And it was basically the theme was, you know, how do new ideas come to the forefront, and how do they get championed? And the gist of it is oftentimes we think just because an old idea has been around forever that it's the best idea, and it takes a while for a new idea to take hold. For example, for thousands of years, you know, we thought it was a really good idea to think that the sun revolved around the earth, and then a new idea came along by Copernicus that we revolved around the sun. And that was a new idea, but as you know, a lot of people got burned at the stake for that idea, and it took a while to take on. Probably a more relevant example is we used to think that eggs and chocolate and coffee were bad for us. Thank God we found out they're really good for us. And in fact, modern civilization cannot survive without it. So we have embraced a new idea at the DRC, and as the mayor eloquently, you know, described it and endorsed it, it's this concept of housing first. So for the last century and a half, our community's response and communities across the country to homelessness was born out of the suffrage movement, where people that were homeless, were addicted, had mental illness, they would come into a caring environment where they'd get shelter and they would find a spiritual base, and they would stay in this environment for a long time to get sober, to learn skills that would allow them to go back into the community. And it's a damn good idea, and we have programs that are predicated on that in our community that have been the basis of homelessness, or a homeless response for 100 years, like Union Gospel Mission and Presbyterian Night Shelter and Salvation Army. And these programs, they're evolving just as the DRC, but the basis of those programs are housing readiness. And those are really necessary programs in our community. They form the safety net in our community. However, that idea in and of itself and just by itself is not sufficient to move the needle forward. And that's where the idea of housing first comes in. So over the last 18 years, our major mission had always been a day shelter and providing services out of an institutional building. Well, in the last 3 years, we have really planned and made a pivot more towards what we call community-based services. And again, the mayor pointed out that homelessness is different for many different people. And homelessness impacts every one of our communities differently as well. An approach where we can work more closely with our communities, where we've discovered that on any one day, while there may be lots of people on East Lancaster, there are just as many homeless people in all of our different communities, in the downtown community, in the Riverside community, in Meadowbrook, in North Ridgely. Folks are homeless all over town. We further found that many of these folks didn't come from outside our community, but they originated here in Fort Worth. They are our citizens. So as we really looked at this, you know, the idea was really to pivot away from institutional services. We have a safety net. We wanted to do more and really look at housing first as the basis for working more closely with our communities and community stakeholders, developing solutions to homelessness at the community level that were number one, acceptable, first of all, because the strategy was to engage community stakeholders in their community, get their buy-in, and develop programs that were not only accessible, but available, acceptable, and affordable. So in December of this year, we actually transformed from being a day shelter to being an agency that spends 100% of its resources on a housing first model and housing people and working with communities and developing unique solutions. And in the 3 years that we made that pivot, we went from being a $480,000 a year organization to an organization that's just a little bit under $1.5 million. And, you know, I thank all of you for that support, and I thank you for the vision that you've had in supporting this move towards housing first. Now, day shelters is an important resource, and another agency has taken that over down in the East Lancaster area. There's a building called True Worth Place. We co-locate there as well, and will continue to be a partner in the East Lancaster neighborhood because it is a neighborhood and there's a high concentration of folks there, and we'll continue to work there as well. But today, some of our more innovative programs is going into the communities, co-locating in different agencies and helping those agencies and those entities and institutions and business associations, help them respond to homelessness by engaging people that are homeless, developing very rapid plans for getting people into housing as quickly as possible and off the streets. Once people are in housing off the streets, then we wrap services around them. And this is a model that's been in place for about 12 to 15 years across the country, and it's proven to be very, very effective. It leads to longer and more sustained reintegration back in community. It leads to a reduction in the symptoms of mental illness and drug and alcohol addiction. It leads to better overall health care, and it leads to less expense for our local community. It's actually more expensive to sustain homelessness than it is to end it by putting people into housing. So, as the mayor said, about 90% of the people we put in housing, and we'll put anywhere from 160 to 200 people in housing this year, 90% of them are still in housing a year later. And then after that, people start moving along. They live their own lives, just like you and I move at various times, and reintegrate back into the community. So our partnerships are not just to identify housing and place people in housing and provide case management, but we work with our faith-based community to help reintegrate people into community, into congregations, developing friendship circles, developing mentoring opportunities for people to know that when they come back home, they're not just coming to a shelter, they're coming to a home community. And that defines Fort Worth. We want to be two things in Fort Worth. We want to be a safe city, and we want to be a community that accepts and loves everybody. And there is a place for everybody in Fort Worth. So there's a couple of programs that really epitomize what we're doing. We've got partnerships with MHMR of Tarrant County where we are doing what's known as rapid rehousing. And then we also have this great apartment where we do a program where we do permanent supported housing where we have co-located case managers in apartment complexes. So anyway, as everybody's like doing this to me, I really want to thank you for allowing us, one, the freedom to disengage as an institutional-based organization and to really spread our wings and become this community-based organization. It's been a very, very successful evolution, and it's one that I see lots of our agencies starting to pivot towards. We're happy to be and honored to be kind of the tip at the end of that spear. We're very, very grateful for your support and for making this all possible. Thank you very much.